Hey, I've got a treat for you today. Jim is going to stop by. He's been pretty hands-on for now until I run him out so he can do a reveal. But he came by and is checking the bearings. He's very serious about bearings, as we all should be. And he wants to take a look at them. But hey, if you're getting any kind of value out of any of our videos, please hit the like and subscribe. Definitely ring the bell. Leave me a comment. You know, I like those. But anyway, he's going to tear into them, and he's going to show us what we should and shouldn't do. And it's might be a little surprise in there for you, too. So let's get right over to Jim and the bearings. Now, don't forget, this is Jim's King we're working on for him. And I told you in an earlier episode that Jim really likes these electric brakes. And as we got tearing into it, Jim found some problems. So today, Jim's going to show us exactly how to replace some bearings and how to re-grease them and get them ready to go. But first off, Jim, show us why we have to replace this bearing.
Okay, when you pull these apart, pull the bearings out and inspect them. If you'll look at this one real close, you'll see the deep grooves in it. That will not last very long. You don't want to get out on the highway and then eat the bearings up. So go to the parts store. There's numbers on the back of these. If you're really lucky, they can cross-reference the numbers. Also, they call this the race. This is what's drove in the back of the hub that this bearing rides in. This one has grooves in it also. I just had a person a few weeks ago didn't take care of their bearings or didn't get them greased, and it ended up burning the bearings up. The wheel fell off, and so now they've got to end up getting a new axle. So it's much cheaper to go buy new bearings and make sure this is right. If you got good tires, good bearings, and a good hitch, you can get home from anywhere. So
now, a lot of people may not know where to go to get bearings, and you told me that you just went to the local auto parts store and they finally found what you needed, so that's probably the best place to start, do you think?
If you're really lucky, they can cross-reference the numbers, but I've ended up having to go to a bearing specialty place on some in the past, and they had the special order, took a week or two to get. So not always you can get them at the parts store, but that's where I would try first.
All right, we're going to go to the other side, and Jim's going to take us step by step on how to get these bearings back in order.
This is called the race that goes down in here that the bearing rides in. If you'll really take a good paper towel and wipe, it's hard to see, but there is marks in this. You don't want to put a new bearing in a race that's got marks in it. It'll tear the bearing right up. So they do make race deals that knock them out. Actually, this race is already loose in there, so that's not going to take much to get it out. What I do is take a chisel, and there's a lip back there. And just work your way around. I can feel it going out. See, it's already started out. And there's the old race.
And when we say race, that's just the part that the bearing rides on to create the ability for the wheel to spin on the spindle.
You'll look right there. I wiped it out with a paper towel. See the marks that's in that? You do not want to match a new bearing with a bad race. So we purchased a brand new race. If you got a little block of wood, that's the best deal to put on there to start. Or you can use the old race and hit on it to put the new race in. and work your way around. You don't want to hit just on one side because it needs to go down in there straight. See, it's about halfway in there now. Constantly spinning, and you can feel it. See, now it's down below the lip. And there's a stop or a groove that will go down and set. You want to make sure it's all the way. Now I've got to knock the old one back out, because I just used it to put the new race in. And there's the new race. The bearing will fit down in there just like that, and that's how it will spin when it's on there. All of these has a seal behind that race that goes right there. The seal keeps the grease from coming out and slinging all over. When you take this apart, you want to slide a seal on there and check that it fits. See, that fits real good right there and will seal. I pulled them apart where you had slack and the rubber seal was missing, but you always want to check that and make sure it seals good. That's what keeps, you don't want to sling grease out on these brake shoes. That will make it not work. So you're going to get greasy doing these bearings. They do make a grease packing a kit that you put a grease gun on a grease. This is the way I've done it for many, many years, and a lot of people. Just put a big wad in your hand and start doing like that. If you'll notice, you'll start seeing the grease come up through the bearing and start out and just rotate the bearing. That means it's pushed it all the way from the back. See how it's sticking out? Turn the bearing.
So this grease is really probably the most essential part of keeping your bearings and seals in good condition, would you say?
That is correct. And I use the high temperature disc brake wheel bearing grease. That's what I've used, because these are got brakes on them, and the smaller the tire, the faster they're spinning. You want to use the best grease. This is your lifeline right here. Plenty of grease. Grease is cheap. I just keep rolling it around till I get grease coming out all the way around. Then you want to take extra grease and put down in there before you put the bearing in it. Then just make sure you got plenty of grease. Grease is cheap, axles are not, so just remember that. Okay. See how I just placed it down in there? It's packed tight with grease. And then it's always better to have a friend with you that can help you with some paper towels. And wipe up any grease you get on the outside here. There's two ways you could put this seal in. You want to put it where the seal seals it from going out the back. So this is actually the side that's going to stick like that. It holds the grease in. Then just take a hammer, work your way around. And put it in there till it's about flush. Now we finished the back. flip it over, take the front bearing. The front bearing's always smaller than the back bearing, but you start same way again. And always inspect your bearing. I've inspected this. All the rollers are good and smooth. There's no chips or rust holes. But you can actually see the grease pushing up right there as you're doing this. It's pushing through the bearing. And then have your friend get you some paper towels, because she'll go through about a half a roll. Always put a little grease where that seal rides, because if you put a dry seal on there and it starts spinning, it can burn the seal. I would just grease all of this so all the bearings can slide on very easily. Then take your hub, pushes on just like that. You've got a washer, and almost all of them has a little stick-up notch. That's to keep this from spinning with the bearing. And there's a slot on the shaft right there. And that's where it'll go. See, it can't turn. Then your castle nut. Snug and spin. This is probably the only nut that's on a car or a camper that is not extremely tight. You just snug it, spin that a few times, then you want to back up about a quarter of a turn where it spins. This is Then it's good to have one of these cotter pin assortments. Then you can put whatever size. You got to find the hole, and I forgot where it was. Well, let me find the hole. There it is. Okay. Now we'll go back tight. Just snug, back up about a quarter of a turn. And this cotter key keeps that nut from back. They call that a castle nut. As you can see, the nut's a little bit loose, but you don't want it tight. You'll burn your bearings up. That's how you want it, exactly like that. Take a pair of needle nose, bend it over. And these are a little bit long, so I'll cut them off. But the cotter pin is what keeps that from backing off. See how smooth that rolls now? Then there's a grease cap that goes out here to cover it all up. This keeps dirt from getting in there. If your grease cap has sides on it, flat spots, they thread on. A lot of them are smooth. They just tap back on like this. Get it going straight, go around. I also, while you got it apart, just put a little bit of grease on the lug nut so the lug bolts go back on there.
All right, I think we're good to go on this side. Jim, thanks for stopping by World Headquarters, and that is definitely good information we all need.